I don't feel like I'm a creative person. How do I tap into my creativity?
Read that question one more time.
Oh.
Are we close enough? Do I need to get closer? We good. A little closer. Kind of weird. Too much space. That's your boyfriend out there. I'm going to leave him alone.
All right. This person said, I don't feel like I'm a creative person. How do I tap into my creativity?
Okay. People look at creativity as if it's only reserved for the arts. Like, you're only creative if you can paint, draw, rap, sing, or whatever it is. People think that's creativity. Creativity is to be able to be a creative mom, a creative dad, a creative coworker, a creative way of implementing yourself in a unique way to those things and people around you. If you don't feel creative, it's because you're probably drained on the inside. That's something that's draining you. The number one thing that drains us from being creative is procrastination. Another thing is deception. A lot of different things hinder us from being creative. You have to look at your life right now and say, what are those things in my life that's keeping me from creating? Sometimes it's busyness. Sometimes it's being overworked. When your mind is overworked, when your body is overworked, when your emotions are overworked, and you're not connected to God, you won't have a conduit, you won't have a passageway to get creative juices flowing. That's why most of my creative moments happen at 3 a.m., and most of y'all can't get up at that time because y'all got to go to work. But I remember times in my life where creativity will hover over me. Like God will come in the room and say, do a video on sex and soul ties. Or I want you to work on this book idea. And when I did those things catapulted me to a place where I'm at today because I capitalized on that moment of creativity. How you get creativity into your life, you remove the things out of your life that you used to worship and replace it to the one God that you should be worshiping. So what happens is you make room for him in your life. Listen, when God is always around you, he overflows with creative ideas. He still probably has billions upon billions of ideas that can help humanity inside of him right now, but no human being is willing to pull it out of him. No human being is willing to release it out there in the world. And I refuse to be a person to go to heaven. And God said, man, you did all right, bro, but you only got 20% of my job done. If you would have only developed systems and habits to ensure that you stay spiritually connected, if you read often, you prayed often, like I try to fast one day out of the week. They say people who fast one day out of the week live 20, 30 years longer than the person who doesn't. There's benefits to spiritual disciplines that ensures that your brain is clear enough, all the emotional toxics are gone, all the physical toxics are gone, and you're able to have a clear path to heaven where God can say, I'm going to drop that idea on you, and I trust that you'll be able to fulfill it through. So the best way to be creative is to incubate yourself in God's creative presence. When you're in his presence, there's a fullness of joy. When he's your everything, you content. When you're content, you are open up enough to hear him and to a place where you say, God, I hear you, and I'm not even going to let fear hinder me. Because when you're in God, it's hard to be afraid. When you're outside of God, you're very afraid because God always puts you in situations that are too big for you, that you need him to be a part of it to get through. So if you're feeling uncreative, if you don't feel like you're creative enough, you got to say, okay, what's draining me? What's toxic in my life? What are those toxic relationships? What are those toxic people? What are those toxic things that's keeping me from progressing into the things of God? The number one thing that these demons attack in your life is your prayer life. You are only as strong as your prayer life. You're only as strong as your communication channels between you and God. If that's blocked, you can't help but be creative. You may be successful. You may make money carnally, but you won't have no residual impact in this life. So in order for you, the practical things that you need to do tonight, say that question again. First off, you got to sell yourself. I am a creative person. God has placed in me unique talents and abilities to create. You can't sit there and say, well, I'm not quite the creative person. Remove all your ideologies about creativeness and replace it with what God said he placed in. He made you a unique wonder. I don't sound like any other preacher. He created me a specific voice, not an echo of somebody else's. I ain't out here groaning and shouting and having you got an organ back here. I don't do that. God gave me my own unique way. You see, I don't stand up. I sit on a stool. There's my own unique way, and I found this creativeness about myself that makes me unique. There's too many copies out here. God only makes originals. And what happens is we forfeit being original to be a copy of someone else, and we wonder why we don't get the same results as someone who's actually being an original. So that's my answer to that question.